All right, welcome to the Live Your Dreams podcast, where success leaves clues and someone has your answer. Today we're shooting from the Sunshine State, and I have a special guest with me. We're talking about mental health. My lovely wife of 27 years, over 27 years, knew this lady half my life. The lovely Miss Tia Mckisset. Welcome, Tia, to the Live Your Dreams podcast.
Hello.
All right, so first and foremost, we want to jump right into it. We're going to talk about mental health. And one thing I like, Tia, is like your father, you're very transparent. Your father was very transparent with me. That's how I was able to live my dreams because I had someone who was honest with me, who, really peeled back took the mask off, if you should say. And I would say, you're the same way, you do the same thing. So, jumping right into mental health, we were talking about that. So, when did you notice a difference that something was different? When did you notice that?
Well, I got sick and I had a tubal pregnancy, found out. We were in North Carolina on vacation and I was laying in the bed in the hotel. I couldn't get up. I was hurting really, really bad. And my Aunt Queenie, she's an older aunt, and she came and said, I'll take you to the emergency room. So she took me to the emergency room. They ran all tests and they told me I was pregnant. I was excited, but at the same time, I was a little nervous because I felt so bad. I couldn't get out of bed. I was in so much pain. And they told me, you okay? You just pregnant? And I said, okay. Went back to the hotel. My symptoms got worse. I started getting really, really dizzy and um, laying in the bed. And everybody around me, they were having fun. I noticed they were having fun. But I was laying in the bed, actually pulling my hair out because I was in so much pain. So I told my husband something is wrong. So on the way back home from North Carolina, I was, we were driving, but I was looking for hospitals, in my mind, just looking for different hospitals to go to because I knew I was sick, but didn't know how sick I was. And when we got back to Fort Washington, Maryland, I went to the emergency room. I went to Fort Washington, and they said, okay, we'll do a pelvic exam, we'll do a sonogram, we'll figure out what's going on. And when they did all that, they said, you'll have to talk to the OB. So the OB came in, and he looked at me, and he said, we have to do major surgery. You have a tubal pregnancy. I told him, I said, are you sure? Because another doctor told me 20 years before that I had a tubal pregnancy, did surgery, and nothing was wrong. So I told him, I said, okay. I called my husband. They said, take off everything, your rings, your jewelry, everything, and we're going to do surgery. I went into surgery, and it was only supposed to be 30 minutes. It took 2 hours. They said I had a liter of blood in my stomach. They said if I waited one more day, I wouldn't have been here. And I was just so blessed that everything went well after the surgery. And 8 months later, that's when anxiety hit. When the baby was supposed to be due that November, I woke up with a racing heart. And after that, I started losing weight. I didn't want anything to eat.
But at that time, did you know what was going on?
I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is I woke up and my heart was racing. The first thing I did was call my parents, and I said, something is wrong. I need to go to the emergency room. So I went, and they told me, you're okay, everything was fine. But I knew something was wrong.
So when you look back and you say something was wrong, and I guess I want to kind of dig into that a little bit. At that time, you didn't know what was wrong. You just knew something was wrong.
Yes.
So how did you come to the conclusion, or what was the first thing you did? I know you said, because I remember that like yesterday, but what was the first thing you did to try to get some type of answer for yourself?
The first thing I did, I made an appointment with my primary care doctor. And I also went to family members too. I would tell everybody about what was going on. My heart was racing. I was dizzy. I was nauseous. My head was hurting. I was losing weight by the pounds, by the day. I would tell anybody who would listen what was going on with my symptoms. So I told a friend, and she said, sounds like you have anxiety. And I said, anxiety? I said, no, all these physical symptoms, this is how you're supposed to feel? And she said, yes. and she told me that I should contact a psychiatrist and a therapist. I didn't think I needed a psychiatrist or a therapist because my whole body was aching. It was hurting. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't sleep. I was looking around at my husband. He was able to sleep. Everybody in the house sleep except me.
Now, when you look at that and you couldn't sleep, and you said you were having some physical pains, when one of your friends said, "Hey, maybe you need to go see a therapist," what did you think about that?
Well, at the time, I didn't believe it, but then I was desperate. I felt like I got to go see somebody because I didn't want to be in pain. I didn't want to live like that any longer. I couldn't be a wife. I couldn't be a mother. I couldn't do the things I really wanted to do because anxiety was taking over.
So, when you reached out to a therapist, did you start to get some answers that you were looking for?
Well, she sat and talked to me. I felt good that I was able to talk to somebody that was not judgy, and she was able to get to the root of the cause. She also, I told her about my tubal pregnancy, and she said that was a lot of trauma, and also the fact that the doctor said you would not have been here, and I already had 4 children, and just to think about that, if I waited one more day, I wouldn't be here.
So, do you think that when the therapist got to the root cause, because I remember that day when she even said, "Hey, my condolences for the loss of the child," and I didn't even look at as a loss. Unfortunately, I didn't have that type of knowledge. So, when the therapist said, "My condolences for the loss of the child," how did that make you feel?
Well, at the time, I didn't get to grieve about this situation because I was so happy that I was alive. And 8 months later, I guess I was really grieving, and didn't know it. And that's where the anxiety set in.
Okay. So, how do you think the path to recovery? How did that happen? How did you get better?
It took a while. I think I'd struggled with it for about 2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
And my youngest daughter looked at me and said, "Oh," because this is around November when it happened. She said, "Well, you'll be feeling better by Christmas." And I'm saying in my mind, I want to feel better now.
So, when they said, "Okay, 2 months you'll feel better," in 2 months, did you feel better?
Well, once I went to the psychiatrist and I started telling her my symptoms,
Mhm.
she told me she was going to put me on some medication. At first, I was like, I don't want to take any medicine. But when you're desperate, when you're hurting, when you're in pain, you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't concentrate, you're willing to do it. So I got on some medication, some sleeping medication, and some medication for the day. And in 2 weeks, I felt amazing.
Now, one of the things, and this is Live Your Dreams podcast, I always believe that success leaves clues. Somebody has your answer. I know you have the answer for somebody out there that may be hurting, maybe going through those symptoms. I want to get to the root because life is about feeling. How did you feel when you went to see a psychiatrist, a therapist? How did you feel? How did you overcome that stigma or overcome that feeling of, I don't want to do this? But when you did it, it helped you. How did you overcome that?
But once I got there and started
Mm.
talking to the psychiatrist, I felt safe. I felt like I was in the right place to start off, instead of just being home and dealing with all the symptoms. I felt like that was the right place to be.
Okay, so once you got over that hurdle of I don't want to go, but when it started to get better.
Yes.
Okay.
And to see other people in there struggling with their mental health, that kind of made me feel like I'm not feeling like them. But at the same time, I knew I had to get help because your family's not equipped to deal with when it comes to mental health. They can support you, but they're not equipped because they're not going through that. So
And also, I always say I'm not a medical doctor. You're not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed therapist. You're not a licensed therapist. So I'm not qualified to give the type of help that you may need. Know if somebody's out there, you may be surrounded by people who are not qualified to help you. So I think some of the keys you said of making sure you go first and foremost, I guess, to the primary care physician is the key to that. I want to get back to the point where you got past the stigma, you did the hard part. Because always, some part of living your dreams is just the start. So you started the process, and what would be your recommendation of if someone's out there they're hurting? What would be your recommendation? And we're not medical doctors, licensed therapists. But what would be your recommendation of someone who went through that? What would be the first step of getting past that?
Well, the first step is to go to your primary care doctor so they can do blood work, and so you can go and talk to them about the situation and let them let you know that you're okay physically. And then if they let you know that you're okay physically, then you know that you're dealing with some anxiety. And at that point, you should go to a psychiatrist and a therapist.
Now, one of the things sometimes, and I know you dealt with this with the primary care. Now, could it be where the primary care may not diagnose that it's anxiety? Could that happen?
Yes, when I went to one primary care doctor, she told me to get out of her office. And she gave me the name of a psychiatrist and a therapist. Because a lot of times people don't want to talk about mental health and anxiety. So sometimes you got to be your best advocate and do it yourself.
But how did you get to the point where now you're comfortable talking about it? And again, I always say you like your father, where you're very transparent. Which I always say your father lived an amazing life. I think we all agree about that. And you live an amazing life. I
Right.
really do. But uh, and I'm telling everybody, hey, you have to be transparent because that's not easy to do. What you and your father do, it's not easy. But how do you? I guess now you say, okay, the first step is go to primary care or whatever it may be. But how did you get past the stigma or whatever it may be, where you could talk about it so freely? How did you get there?
Well, after I started feeling better, I was able to help other people that was going through anxiety. They didn't know they were going through it. And they would tell me their symptoms. And I was able to say, oh, you have anxiety. You should go get help and go to the doctor, go to the psychiatrist and get help.
Do you think that the culture or whatever we may call it, do you think it's becoming more open to mental health, or do you think we still have some hurdles to overcome?
I think we're becoming more open to it now because when I was trying to explain it to my parents, I would talk to anybody that would listen about my symptoms. I would talk to them about how I was feeling. They were scared. They didn't want to talk about it. But at the same time, I knew I needed to get help. So I was able to go to my doctor and figure things out. So I say, to support other people, anybody, if you have a spouse, children or whoever are going through anxiety because of what the world is going through now. It don't have to be a health anxiety. It could be um, anything. It could be worration about life, money, your circumstances, or anything that could cause you to go into anxiety. So you have to be supportive to your family members and be understanding. Because if you're not going through it, you wouldn't understand it. You would just tell them, "Oh, snap out of it. You okay?" And a lot of people deal with stress and anxiety different. So I just say be supportive of one another. And if you hear anybody reaching out with different symptoms, try to help them. Try to take them to the right source because you don't know what people are feeling when they go alone by themselves in their bed, can't sleep, can't eat. They losing weight. So please, whatever you do, just help your family. And exercise is good too. My husband, he told me, "Let's come on, let's walk, let's get out this bed, let's get out this room, let's go," because anxiety would make you lay down. You want to lay down in the bed for hours. You don't want to eat. You don't want to be around people. So everybody a little different about their symptoms, but you don't want to engage. You don't want to do normal activities. So if you see any of your family members or spouse or children, anyone, going off to themselves and they're not really engaging and talking and interacting with the family, then you need to start looking into getting them to a doctor, getting somebody to talk to, even if they just go to a therapist and, somebody that can talk to them that won't judge them.
And I always say, um, early detection is always the key. We know so many individuals who are in their 80s, 90s living an amazing life because they stay at the doctor. I mean, and they have overcome some difficulties. But because they had early detection, stayed in the doctor, they're living a great life now. Now, one of the things, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And one thing I do is I go to all my appointments and I encourage all my family that you get your physical, that you get your mammogram, that you get your pap smear, that you go to the dentist, eye doctor. It's important that you go to all your appointments. and exercise.
Yeah, and I would kind of, piggyback on that because I agree. I think because of you, I go to all of my appointments, and I know, I have lupus, so I can't be in the sun too long, so I can't be a fool. But I definitely wanted to come out here to just really talk about that and get you to share your story because again, success leaves clues. Someone has your answer, and I believe today you definitely had someone answer. In conclusion, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
Like I said, if you have any a spouse or your children, make sure they go to the doctor if they're dealing with mental health. Your mental health is important, and also just like your physical body can get sick, your mental health can get sick too. So just um, make sure that you protect your loved ones. You only have one body, one mind, so protect it.
Absolutely. So again, ladies and gentlemen, if you really um, like what you heard today, please subscribe, like, share. We're going to continue to enjoy some of this sunshine state, but I'm going to get out of this sun so I can be here a little longer. All right. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And again, I'll see you. And yes, I do mean you. Living your dreams. Peace.